Okay, so now we're gonna get cooking dessert. Our dessert is going to be a very simple and very delicious mandarin orange dump cake. Yeah, and we're gonna do it in a loaf pan so that it's kind of like pound cake maybe. And we're going to do two of them because one of them we're gonna freeze for later, and I'll tell you about that in just a little bit. So let's get started. I'm gonna open up this here cake mix. It's just a regular old white cake mix. You can use a yellow cake mix if you want to. This one just happened to be the one that was closest when I was grabbing all the food. All right, so we've got our cake mix, we've got our mandarin oranges, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna crack 3 eggs into our mixing bowl. Excuse my garbage, we all have it. We all wish we could reduce the amount of it. Bloop, come on, Snotty. There we go. I'm going to whip these eggs up. I'm not getting out my hand mixer, and I'll tell you why. I like this to be a little bit chunky, and when I do this recipe with the hand mixer, it blends it all so smoothly that I don't seem to get the effect I want. Just going to open up this big can of mandarin oranges, add it, juice and everything, and kind of give that a whisk around. And those are going to break up a little bit, but you know, it's up to you how much you want them chopped up. I like them just a little bit so there's still some nice bits throughout my cake. But if you're like, oh, I don't want any bits, then go ahead and use your electric mixer because that'll pretty much pulverize those soft little bits. Alternately, if you just want juice, then just use orange juice. I like a little bit of extra in mine. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this cake mix. There we go. Cake mix in. And I'm going to just keep on mixing it as it changes color and texture. Alrighty. Let that set for just a second while I spray out my pans. Now, I actually prefer to use Baker's Joy, and I recommend using Baker's Joy, not any of the other brands. I don't find them to work as effectively. But I could not find any at my local store. I live in a small town this time when I went shopping, so I'm going to go ahead and use olive oil because why not? The idea is, you know, to get it out of the pan. But this also is, you know, something fun and lovely for your family. And I always say if a cake breaks, it's then a trifle. But this shouldn't break. These should pop out real nice. Just a little bit of olive oil is just as good as anything else. A little bit healthier for you. Okay. Now I'm going to pour first the one for tonight. And I want that to be about half full. And then I'm going to do the one for later. It doesn't have to be as full because it's actually going to be made into another recipe. So you don't really have to have it 100% tall and fluffy like you do the one for tonight. You want it to be a little bit more fluffy than the one for that we're going to make into something else. There's our little, can you see inside that? It just moved a little bit, but that's okay. So, now you remember, if you were cooking with me in the last video, then you know that right now I have got lemon pepper chicken with carrots and potatoes and onions and celery all cooking together. I also have an Italian breast cooking and a rubbed sage legs and thighs, 2 of those, all cooking in the oven right now. Also, I have about, I think, 10 potatoes cooking in the oven as well. And since the oven's at 350, which happens to be the same temperature that I want to bake my cakes, should we risk it? Let's see if my plan will work. One delicious mandarin orange pound cake. It's setting for about 5 minutes here on the counter. Actually, there's 2 of them. Now this one looks a little dark around the edges, but that's okay. We're gonna trim that out when we go to do our baked Alaska creamsicle baked Alaska later this, I think it'll be actually next week. Beautiful cake. A jar of just regular old marmalade. I'm gonna take a couple scoops of the marmalade. Put it inside my little bowl here. Just like maybe 3 tablespoons, I'm guessing, which is a 1/4 of a cup. I'm also going to put 1 little drop of some almond extract in there to liven it up a little bit. Make it a little bit marzipan-y. We're going to go ahead and give this a nice little stir around. You can smell that orange and the almond. And then when you get to this real nice consistency here, where it's kind of just gloopy, I'm going to just put this right on top of the cake. Kind of smear it around. I don't want to put a whole lot on and make it so it's super duper sweet. I'm really just trying to kick that orange flavor that's in the cake up a little bit. You don't have to do, naked cakes are in, and you don't have to be super fancy for your family to love it and for it to taste totally out of this world. So, for our dinner, we have our gorgeous chicken and roasted vegetables, lemon chicken and roasted vegetables. And for our dessert, we have this gorgeous cake. So, there's 1 meal down. We have a lot more to go. I'm going to take a little break. It's dinner time. Going to enjoy a nice little bit of time with my family. Then I want you to come back and I want you to see what prep you still have to do for the rest of the week. Don't worry, it's not a lot. I know, Lilith, it seems like a lot, but we're just going to go ahead and make our quick little breakfast frittatas that we're going to have on bagels in the morning. And we're going to make some popovers for our lunch. Why don't you go and enjoy some family time and then come back and see me? We're getting down to it, folks. We're almost done with our prep for food next week. So, you see I have my beautiful little cake. Remember we made a big one? That's the one we had earlier tonight with the marmalade. This is a little one. We don't need it to be super thick because we're actually going to be making a delicious baked Alaska out of this. It's going to be a creamsicle or dreamsicle, depending on what part of the country you grew up in. Baked Alaska. So, earlier when we did our grocery shopping, I scooped out some ice cream and I put it inside this very baking pan. It's a bread pan. And I kind of smushed it in. I put the plastic wrap on it. I put the ice cream in. I put the plastic wrap over the top and just squished it down. What I ended up with was this little guy. Now, he's hard as a rock right now, but boy, he's going to make us just have wonderful, delicious thoughts. Now, you saw I pulled that. It's real easy. And, you know, baked Alaska, I see that there is a little bit of crust, a little burn on this. And it just did a little bit of falling apart. But we're not going to worry about that because this is all going to be covered in a delicious meringue. And ain't nobody going to care about that. Believe me, when you pull out your baked Alaska, no one's going to be looking for flaws. So, we're going to unwrap this ice cream. This big block O ice cream. We just wrapped it in saran wrap, so it's not hard to get it back off again. This is vanilla bean ice cream. I think that it gives it a really nice flavor, and I think that it'll make a nice, delicious filling for this orange cake. Now, if you can see, I just pushed that in on top of that. Give it a nice little push. You're not going to hurt your cake underneath. Then, I'm going to take this cake piece and pop that right on top. Like that. Then, while it's still in this baking pan, which will not be its permanent home, but for about an hour or two until it firms up really nice and all of these, the ice cream and the cake all kind of blend together, we're going to leave those as pals and just pop that back in the freezer. You can leave it in this baking pan if you don't need to use the baking pan in the meantime and leave it in your freezer like that. I'm going to take it out because I have other things to use my bread pan for, like bread. So, I'm going to pop this in the freezer for a couple hours, let it set up and get nice and frozen. And later this week, I'll be showing you some really delightful things to do with this. So stay tuned. Don't forget, if you're doing the meal plan, right now is the time you want to take your pork out of your freezer and pop it in your fridge for tomorrow's pulled pork sandwiches.